Today's project is hopefully a quick one that'll help keep your shop a little bit cleaner along the way. So we are making a dust collection system using some 5-gallon buckets, some extra hose, and then some other pipe accessories. So to get the build started, I ran to my local home improvement store and picked up the supplies. So we've got some 45-degree pipes, we've got some more 1¼ pipe, and then we have the other accessories from my little shop vac, which we're going to use to help put all this together. So to get started, the first thing we need to do is take a closer look at the buckets here. On a regular 5-gallon bucket, there's a lip here that's on the top. So for one of these buckets, we actually need to remove that lip so that they can be pressed into each other. So on this bucket here, I've already gone and removed that. I just took a utility knife, used the blade, and then went around the bucket until it was all the way clear, and then used some snips to add some cuts in here, kind of bent this in, and that allows this bucket to kind of be put on top and push down. So now you can see we've got these two together, which is a nice size, which will hopefully give us plenty of room to kind of create a vortex inside and collect that dust. So now that we've got our two buckets together, we're ready to start moving on to figuring out where to put our inlets and outlets for this. So the way a dust collection system works is usually there's an inlet towards the top on the side, which is where your hose to your tool or whatever you're cleaning comes in. And we want that coming in at a 45-degree angle. So as it's coming in, it'll create a vortex inside the buckets, and gravity will help pull all of that sawdust down to the bottom. And then we'll have our connection to the vacuum on the very top so that hopefully in our shop vac, we don't get all those extra particles, and it'll help make those filters last longer. So to get started, I'm gonna remove these two buckets. We're gonna set this one aside for now because that's really just our bottom. And we're gonna focus on this one. So like I mentioned, for our shop vac inlet, we're gonna need to put some holes in the top here. So on this bucket, we've got some holes that are already there, but what we're gonna look at doing is taking some of these PVC couplers, figuring out how big they are just so we can have an angle for our hose. And then we're actually gonna cap it with one of these rubber caps so that we can cut into it and then attach our hose so it's a snug fit. So to do that, I'm just gonna take a Sharpie, gonna mark out where I want this so that I know where to cut. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just needs to give a rough idea. Kind of like that. So just like before, I'm gonna start with my utility knife to make the first pierce through the bottom. And just kind of wiggle it back and forth, be careful. And we're gonna go around the hole and continue to pierce it and cut out where this pipe will fit. Again, it doesn't need to be a perfect hole. We're gonna use some hot glue to really seal that up and get it nice and flush. So we're gonna check, and it looks like my hole's a little bit small in a couple spots. So again, we're gonna use this utility knife and we're just gonna kind of trim some of it away to help make that PVC 45-degree bend fit just a little bit nicer. So there we go, we've got a loose fit here. So that is about all we need for this. And then we've got our extra rubber cap here, which we will use to wiggle on the top. So there we go. That is what will be connected to our shop vac to create the vacuum and the suction. So let's go ahead and get the hot glue gun heated up, and we're gonna seal this off so that we don't get any of that dust coming out. So while we're waiting for the hot glue gun to get heated up, I actually grabbed the hose from my little shop vac to use as a guide to figure out how much of this rubber we need to cut. The nice thing is with this, it's a little bit more flexible, so we should get a nice snug fit that can easily attach the hose whenever we want to use this. So again, we got our Sharpie. It might be a little bit hard to see with the on the black rubber, but we're just gonna kind of line those up. And actually there's a little bit of sawdust on here, which might make it easier. Okay, that kind of gives me an idea just from the sawdust. So just like everything else, we're gonna get out the utility knife again, and we're just gonna start by putting an X through this rubber. So now we've got a little X in there, kind of see that up in the other camera. And now I'm going to add some additional slits. So now we kind of got this little area that has a whole bunch of little slits on it, and hopefully we can take our Shopvac hose, give it a spin, and just like that, we are now attached to what will be our dust collection system. It's a nice tight seal because the rubber is keeping a nice tight grip on it. So let's see, our hot glue gun appears to be nice and warm now. So we're just going to take our Shopvac hose back out by twisting it. Set that out of the way for now. And there's no specific way you need to have the bucket turn. I'm just going to kind of hold the coupler where I want it so that it's at a nice 45 degree. We're going to come in with the hot glue gun here, and you're kind of using this as a caulk. So you're just going to fill in all those gaps because we don't want any of this sawdust getting out while we're using it. So there we go. As you can see, we have that hot glued in. We've got our attached to the top. If you look inside the bucket, we now have our area for the air to escape. What you can also do is you can add some hot glue to the inside, which will help seal it off even more. So while we're waiting for the outside to cool down, I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. We're going to come in here and just fill all around that coupler, making sure to get a lot of hot glue in there. So now that we have our top here, it's time to start looking at where we want our side inlet to go. And again, we're trying to create that nice 45-degree angle, kind of a vortex. So we're going to take our other larger coupler and grab our Sharpie again. We're going to use this to kind of get an idea of the size of the hole. And we want it towards the top, and we'll use one of these smaller ones on the inside and actually kind of put them together so we get this vortex angling in and down at the same time to really help separate our sawdust. So as you can see, we got those placed in there. So we are having some definite issues with the hose that I bought, creating those harmonic sounds. But in the meantime, what we're going to do, you can see that I put one of the inserts from that hose in here, but it keeps falling out. So we are just going to glue this one in place and still have this extra little 45 degree that we can always put in there and adjust things after the fact. So definitely have some issues with a collapsing of the buckets. Definitely will have to check that out. But let's see what happened with all that sawdust. And I would say it did a pretty darn good job. It got most of the sawdust that was on that table and separated it out in the bucket rather than putting it in the Shopvac. Well, folks, there you have it. We've got our homemade dust collector system with our mini Shopvac. Overall, it works pretty well. Definitely some unforeseen effects. That hose that I had bought that was originally a sump pump hose made a weird whistling noise, so I'll probably just go buy some regular Shopvac hose. But all in all, the vortex worked out really well. We had a great sawdust on the bottom. If we separate these two, you can see right there, we got a whole bunch of sawdust. It kept it out of our little Shopvac, which was ultimately the goal. And if you like this project, be sure to give it a shot yourself. As you guys saw, it doesn't require any power tools. I was able to do most of the work with just a utility knife, a Sharpie, and just some creativity. So you don't have to follow this exactly, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And if you guys do give a shot, leave me a comment below. Or if you have ideas on ways to make it better, or if you know what that whistling was, definitely drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you and see what your thoughts are. Until the next video, I guess it's time for me to go clean up my shop.